Good night and welcome to a special edition of the Zenaida Moya show. We will be celebrating Garifuna Settlement Day shortly, November 19th, and so this show is a very special one, and it is really to bring in the 19th. Just to let you know, this show is being brought to you through the courtesy of Universal Hardware, Smart Belize, Geo Motor, and Moya Shepherd and Company Limited. We are streaming this show live on the Current Television and the Zenaida Moya Show Facebook pages, and so you are also welcome to view it on there as well. All right, today is a very special day for me. It is the birthday of my father, and today he would have been celebrating his 84th birthday. So happy birthday in heaven, Daddy, Eugenio Moya Jr. Senior actually, because he's a junior. Now we have tonight Mr. Jeremy A. Enriquez, all right? He's an educator and he's also the author of a book, a very important book really, because we will get to hear about it, and but he will be the main person speaking on that. But his name is called To Educate a Nation, Autobiography of Andres P. and Jane V. Enriquez. All right, those are his grandparents. All right, now Mr. Enriquez, Jeremy, he currently resides in Belize City, but he's originally from Punta Gorda town. He has left there for 30 years, and I believe it was when you moved on to do your undergraduate and your graduate studies abroad. He comes up from a long line of teachers, and of course we will be hearing about his grandfather and grandmother. But I guess we're going to focus on the grandfather, because we will also go into speaking about principals, teachers, male principals, and things like that. No? Now, with his academic background in education, psychology, sociology, and developmental studies, economics, politics, and history, I'm going to be asking him some questions as it regards what Abdul, Marin Nunes will also be speaking on. And so I'd like to welcome you to the show, Mr. Enriquez.
Thank you very much, Zenaida. Glad to be here.
Thank you too. And of course, Abdul Marin Nunes, he's no stranger to the Zenaida Moya show. Actually, Abdul has been on the show, I think, about 3-4 times, at least 4 times. And so Abdul will be here in the capacity, Abdul has a lot of different hats, all right? Of course, he's also an author, he's a poet, he's an activist, he's also a youth officer in the Ministry of Education, and he will be speaking on the aspect of the lack thereof, really, of male role models in school. And when I speak of that, I speak about the principals and the teachers, all right? Currently, we have in Belize District, and you know, we'll be speaking on Belize District for tonight's show. Currently, we have 6 male principals, and this is the figure from 2016. 6 male principals out of 51 at the primary school level. That's 11.7%, all right? And at the secondary level, we have 6 out of 18. Now this is 2016 figures. 6 out of 18, that's 33.3%, no? So you can see the fact that, you know, we're gonna look at these figures. We're gonna try and see if there's some correlation also. Is that why we're seeing a lot of our males, you know, dropping out of school? They form the lesser numbers as it regards to those who actually remain in school beyond primary school level. And of course, we see them, you know, really a lot are contributing, but there's also a lot that could contribute more and have fallen by the wayside. They have a lot of potential, and while we always focus on our female children, and hey, they're beautiful, they're wonderful, and we always do, but we can't forget the males. And so we will be delving into that area, and I'll be discussing this with both gentlemen. So welcome to the show, Abdul.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, I don't want to speak much. I really want to hear from both of you. And I want you, Jeremy, the book was launched yesterday, right, at UA,
Yes.
UWI, and I want you to speak about the book. I want you to tell us about the importance of this book. I want you to tell us a little bit about your grandfather and your grandmother, you know, the lives and the contribution that the Garifuna has really played in Belize since 1802, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to discuss a bit about that.
Well, thanks for having me on your show, Zenaida. And,
Yes.
I'd like to, and then to discuss about the book. But you also, in this show, will look at, as you mentioned, some very interesting statistics which suggest in the school system and the leadership system in the marginalization of males. And I'm excited to hear Abdul's version about that in the next segment of the show. I think I could also contribute to that, having been a teacher myself.
Yes.
But let me get to the book then, since to start with, and you wanted me to trace from 1802 in a sense. So,
And then I'm just telling you that Christy also has some of the photos. So when you're speaking, she can pull up some of the photos, because what will be seen is even the fact that they were all males in some of those photos that were once teachers and principals, all males.
Exactly.
Something has changed.
In the late 1700s, if I might start a quick history, in the late 1700s, there was a shortage of labor in Belize. You know, there's a foundation of Belize was the mahogany industry. And because a lot of enslaved Africans were escaping from Belize into nearby Mexico and Guatemala, there was a huge shortage, such that even the settlement was under threat. So the British woodcutters, the forestocracy, were really in a puzzle as to what to do, how to address this situation. Even if they imported more enslaved Africans from Jamaica, there was still the problem of them escaping just because of the nature of woodcutting work. They would have to go into the forest, deep forest, to search for mahogany. And so, in a sense, it made it not easy, but it gave the opportunity for further escape. Around that time, the Garifuna people had just, within 5 years of 1802, had just landed in Roatan, having been dumped there by the British after being expelled from the island of St. Vincent, where they were from after the British Carib War. So the solution at the time for the British woodcutters was to import labor. And the labor that they were going to import was the Garifuna people. Mm-hmm. They were one of the only free blacks in all of the Americas. And so they would be the first to be hired, to be brought in as hired laborers. And so they were brought into Belize between August and December 1802 to work in the mahogany, to work in the mahogany industry. There was a problem also. How do we bring in free blacks to live with enslaved Africans? How do we manage that? And the solution was to have them live outside of the Siboon River border at the time. And so they were relegated to live south and not to live within Belize town. So that was the first instance of, I'd say, discrimination, segregation that was designed so that the two African groups did not interact. Mm-hmm. The Garifuna men then, and their families, moved south and further south, from Seboon all the way to Sarstoon. So the first critical role that the Garifuna people played was in the expansion of the territory by moving further south in search of Garifuna to enrich the British forestocracy. So that's the first major contribution in the foundation of this country. The second major contribution, so the first one was the expansion of the territory south to Sarstoon. The second major contribution was in the expansion of Roman Catholic education throughout the country. So they were served, so in a sense we served two European interests. One was for the economy and the other one was in education. When we look at the education sector in which they were involved, it was the interest of the Catholic Church when they first moved to Belize as early as the 1830s and established its first church in Mullins River area, and then moved to Punta Gorda in around 1841, where there was the Catholic Church had some presence in PG as early as 1841, long before it was formally established in other parts of the country. So it established in 1841, grew in 1841, but there was something else that the church wanted to do, was to establish schools. And therefore, because at the time Garifuna people spoke Spanish, because they came from Honduras, some from Guatemala, they spoke English, they spoke Garifuna, they already had three languages. A few of them had some understanding of French. So there was a multiplicity of language in that one group. The church then utilized that as an opportunity to train Garifuna men to be teachers and to deploy them to other parts of the country. And so starting in the early 1860s, around that time, and then into the 1880s, we start to see the expansion of the training of Garifuna men to be as I stress men because that is what it was, and that they were trained to be deployed in communities all over the country. As soon as communities were open, the church had an interest to deploy these men to go and establish the schools in these areas. So we had schools in the Maya communities, we had schools in the Yucatec Maya communities, we had schools in the Mestizo communities, Creole communities, all over, I would say, the peripheral districts. I say that because in Belize town and Belize city at the time was predominance of Anglican and Methodist.
Yeah.
And the Anglicans at the time seemed to have no interest to evangelize outside of Belize city. And the Methodists had also their focus, but not as far-reaching as the Roman Catholics. So they hired Garifuna men to go to all of these communities. So between 1880s all the way up to even up to the 1970s, the people were deployed to all these communities to teach. So, having said that background, my grandfather was one of those men. He started the school in San Antonio, Toledo in 1907. I say started because before that there were attempts to start a school, but because of the very harsh realities there, many of the teachers who went there to attempt to start a school, they quit. My grandfather's experience, as when he was employed to teach at this school, he was already first a pupil teacher in the town school and a little bit in Barranco, and then he was hired to be the principal of San Antonio, which means on the first day that he was supposed to show up to work, he had to walk 25 miles through trails in the forest, climbing hills, through swamps to get to his station in San Antonio.
And that's a Maya village.
And that's the Maya village, the largest Maya village now.
Yes. My brother-in-law is from San Antonio village, that village, yes.
And the reason that he persisted was that he had promised the priest that he would be the one to stay. Because before that, the other teachers spent like a few months and they said, this is not for me, they quit. And he decided that he will stay. And the reason that it was important for a teacher to stay was in a sense to stabilize the village. In those days, the Mayas moved from one area to the next as soon as the land could not have, the land was depleted, so they would move. But in this case, whenever they
Nomads.
yeah, they tried to keep them together by building the school and the church.
Okay.
And so the book talks about his struggles. The book speaks about the very harsh living conditions
Yes.
to be able to establish the school in that community and to
Yes.
try to hold them together.
Mhm.
There were many nights when he was in bitter tears. Imagine, and I keep saying that when I in these launch, if you are 21 years old, which he was at the time,
Yeah.
having to walk and live alone
Hmm.
in this community of strangers with another language, not knowing the language, trying to get them to school, and being treated with discrimination. The villagers did not want him there,
Okay.
but he had to persist. So
Mhm.
many nights of bitter tears, being there alone.
Mhm.
Then, a few years later, he got married to a 17-year-old, my grandmother.
Mhm.
So he was 25, she was 17. And she had to do that trek through the jungle.
Did she know what she was getting herself into?
She heard his stories but did not realize until she took
Yeah.
that journey, 25 miles in those days through the forest. For a 17-year-old. So when I hear 17-year-old saying, oh, I cry because my shoes bust, or oh, they're not seeing nothing yet.
Yeah.
Or a 21-year-old boy say, well, I have a big problem because maybe I couldn't get a plate of food somewhere.
Her father
21-year-old
lived from here to there.
Yeah. 21-year-old doing that trek to lead a community, and that was harsh, and that was at $3, $4 a month.
Wow.
In those days. That was 1907.
Yes.
My grandmother, who lived with him in San Antonio,
Mhm.
through her experience, because of the harsh living conditions, she lost her first 5 children
Wow.
at childbirth. They were stillborn
Yes.
because of those conditions. It was only after they moved out of that village that, to more hospitable conditions, that
Yes.
she was able to bear 6 children.
Okay.
So he worked in San Antonio for 28 years on 2 occasions. He's the longest serving principal, so that village has a lot of his imprint. In fact, I remember going to the village a few years ago, and this old elderly Maya woman in silver hair,
Yes.
genuflecting and say, I greet your grandfather in you. She had such a reverence and adoration. It made me feel so humble
Yes.
for what he has done. And so he's worked in San Antonio, he's worked in Progreso Village, he worked in Cayo, it was called at the time, which is San
Okay.
Ignacio, he worked in
Yes.
Barranco, Quiquesarco, and other places. In those days, these teachers were deployed at
Different
the will
districts.
of the priest.
Yeah. Progress all the
other-
way.
Yeah, so he's just moving around at the pleasure or the will of the priest. So he could be
Yes.
in San Antonio one day when school opened. They say, well, you're going to Cayo, and then you have to bear all the expense with his family to go to El Cayo, and then you're in El Cayo, you're just settling in, you're getting used to the people. The priest could say, well, let's move again. You're going to Progreso, and then you settle into Progreso. Okay, you're going to Quiquesarco. That is the way it was. They served, so they moved through all the districts and taught in several schools. That was the sacrifice that they had to.
So you have to be very dedicated to be a teacher
Be
then.
very dedicated.
Love what you're doing and want to impart knowledge.
But you're not
You're
just
part
a
of
teacher.
development.
You're the catechist. You're the counselor. You're a lot
Yes.
involved in the village. In
Yes.
fact, there was one time my grandfather was even voted in to be alcalde, but he declined. He said, "Nah, I don't want to take on more." So,
Oh my gosh, I would have loved
yeah.
that.
So,
I would have loved to hear that he was an
Maya village, yeah. So those were the experiences. So my grandmother became a well-known traditional healer in
Healer.
PG. She was
A
she was
midwife as well,
So
yes.
she delivered dozens of children in the villages in PG. In fact, I was delivered by my grandmother, and my siblings were delivered by my grandmothers. But the experience that I'm talking about was this is only one snapshot of what several Garifuna families went through, the
Yes.
harsh sacrifices to educate this nation, to lay the foundation for Catholic education. So in a sense, they were agents
Yes.
for the church
Yes.
to establish, manage these schools countrywide.
And I attended all Catholic schools from St. Ignatius Primary School in Belize City to Palote High School run by the Palotine nuns,
Yeah.
and then to Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. That's also a private Jesuit university. And then also thereafter to the University of Detroit, which is also a private Jesuit university. So in terms of the Catholics, I mean, that's the background I come from. And so what they have done, what those Garifuna teachers and their families have done, because it's also their families,
Yeah.
I mean, enough respect, and we really appreciate it. They have definitely set a foundation for us and for Belize.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
But those were in the national discourse. This tended to be not recognized. It's not a solid recognition in our historical discourse in the country, and so I thought that a book like this would
Yes.
start that kind of a discussion,
Yeah.
which is why I think it's very important to be in schools and all that. So some of the pictures that might have been shown will reveal they will see a picture with Garifuna men themselves.
Yes. Yes, that's it.
These
Yes.
noble men, you just notice them in suit and tie
Yes.
in hot PG,
Yes, yes.
but they were trained as catechists.
Oh my gosh, that's true. It's in
Um,
PG. And
And these men were the fathers of many of prominent Garifuna men you see today.
Yes.
My grandfather is there. My father was a teacher. You see Mr. Eugene Cayetano, who is the father of Mr. Roy Cayetano. You see Mr. Charles Martinez, who is the father of Peter Eden Martinez, former minister, and his brother Charles Martinez Jr.,
Okay.
who was also a former minister. You'll see Mr. John Paulino, the father of Mr. Marin Paulino. And so you will see that because these men were trained with very strict discipline and strong values, they demanded no less from their families. and
there's
their
a picture
children.
of a chief trainer, what you call it, a main trainer, a picture of one guy.
One of the priests.
One
was
of the
Father
priests.
Tink.
So, yeah.
Father Tink was
Yeah,
very instrumental in.
Yeah.
He was the one who set up the teacher training program
Yes.
in PG. In fact, Punta Gorda was the source. Early in the education system, Punta Gorda was the source of these teachers.
Okay.
Father Tink, before there was teachers training or teachers college or all that, Father Tink, who lived in PG for 25 years, was the one who organized the teacher training for these teachers. So they were trained before they were
So in
deployed.
PG, so even like, can be the St. Peter Claver
St. Peter Claver Parish. Yes.
That's like the
That's
OLS
where
and
it's,
also the credit union movement. That's from the
Yeah,
birth. That's
definitely.
so, and it's them who also brought that and set that up now.
Exactly.
Very good. So PG, the Toledo district, they have an extremely rich history.
Definitely.
Wow.
And you know, interesting
Yeah.
today, you see a lot of leaders also coming out from PG. Some way they were influenced by those foundations. You always hear about Wilma here, you hear
Yes.
about Paul Morgan, you hear about so many others
Yes.
coming out of PG, Roy Cayetano,
Yes.
Edmund Zuniga.
Yes.
And if you watch keenly,
Ludwig
Palacio,
Palacio.
yeah.
Right, Ludwig.
So those
Yes.
are descendants of those men. So
Yeah.
that was a part of the foundation. Although Will is not a descendant, he went to Claver College, and those kinds of influences are there to build strong foundation.
All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to our first ad break, and then when we come back, we're gonna hear a little bit more, but we're gonna Just stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
Geo Motors, the best motor for Belize. It is here, a new brand with a new edge on motorsports when it comes to performance. They are here in your geolocation. Geo Motors, the best motor for Belize. It's the new brand with a new edge in motorsports when it comes to performance. Now they're here in your geolocation. These new Geo bikes are an improved version of motorbikes in their class, with a silent engine and new electrical safety features. When it comes to durability, the wheels carry no spokes. They guarantee a safer and stronger ride. If you think about your gas mileage, Geo has the best, most fuel-efficient motors. The best motors you could buy. Our 2.0 engines are designed to burn less fuel to produce more power, keeping you riding firm and comfortable for longer. Even if you go faster, Geo Motor will take you. Geo will take you anywhere you wish. So go countrywide today. Use the number on your screen and call our agent near you.
Buying or selling land can be a daunting experience. Don't leave things to chance. When buying or selling land in Belize, seek the professional real estate services of Moya Shepherd and Company Limited. Benefit from our extensive local and international network to find your dream home or to move your property from selling to sold. Our land consultancy services also include appraisals, conveyances, registrations, surveys, transfers, title searches, and the preparation of all other legal documentation and land transaction processes. We are located at 5 miles Philip Coulson Highway. Give us a call at 223-4465 or visit us at www.realestatebz.com.
Smart's Broadband Unlimited Internet is available in all 6 districts. Sign up and get your modem and installation free. Enjoy the fastest, most reliable broadband internet for your home or office. Now offering 1 megabyte for only $55. Sign up and get installation and equipment free.
And welcome back. We have been having a very informative, I must say I have learned a lot, Jeremy, a whole lot. Abdul, I know you have been learning a lot, and as I mentioned to you going into break, I know there will be a poem.
Absolutely.
Abdul is an excellent poet. I mean, I don't know how he does it, but he has that gift. Abdul, now we had spoken, we have been seeing a lot of pictures about these educators being male, and the contribution of the Garifuna people. I want you to now delve into, there has been a shift in terms of even the principals and the teachers. When you see, like even in the different rallies, the protests and so forth, they're mainly female teachers.
Right.
That's who you see really. And you know, every so often you see a male. So times have changed, and I would want you to really go over, and we do have a list of the only 6 out of 51 male principals from the primary, and then the only 6 out of the 18 principals, and this is from Belize district only, of the secondary school. And so I'd want you to get into that, and then I want to ask you, what your thoughts are on that situation. You also come from the Ministry of Education. What's your views on that?
First of all, I want to say thanks for this opportunity to be on the same platform with my teacher, Mr. Enriquez here. Male teacher too. He taught me at Belmopan Comprehensive School in around 1988, 1999. He was the first person to introduce me to English literature. So I have great respect for the gentleman, and I recommend that the book is circulated and used as a textbook for schools.
Yeah.
Now, going to the question that you asked, this conversation with regards to the correlation between dropouts and not having a proportionate male to female ratio in teachers at the all school level has been a conversation that has been going on for about over 19 years. This is about when Ms. Faye Gillett was the person in charge of education as we know it behind Complex. So there were ongoing conversation, but nobody took it serious. And now it has morphed out of control. You see, when a young man reaches the tender ages or age of adolescence, he needs to have male mentors to be able to help him to be able to discover himself. And Mr. Enriquez can speak to the psychological effects in that adolescent at one stage where you fight for find your personality. And if you don't have people there to guide you, you could become misguided. Now, look at this. You have a child that comes from a single parent home, the only married here. Then he comes into the school system now, which is predominantly female too.
Yes.
Then he's going through all these hormonal issues. And then he has to listen to a teacher too, a female. It makes it difficult for him, and he loses interest. So this is adding to the push-out rate. Now, having male to female, a good balance of male to female ratios, and one of the schools that I would want to use as my yardstick is EPR.
Okay.
EPR has traditionally been a school with male principalship or head teachership. And this is the reason why EPR has been able to succeed to academic excellence up to today.
Was it Mr. Suknanda? Who was the principal there?
We have several principals there.
Yeah.
Apart from Mr. Yark himself,
Mr. York, yes.
there was Mr. Bennett, who wrote that book on education. Of course, there was Mr. Bowman. There was Mr. Genity. And after Mr. Genity left, Mr. Cardenas, who is currently there, took over. So because of that succession of male principalship, the young people there are doing, especially the boys, are doing well academically. They've, for lack of a better word at this time, they tear up on CXC.
Yeah, I'm here. That's one of the top schools.
Of course.
I mean, that's where people want to go.
And he runs a tight ship.
Okay.
Back in the 80s, Mr. Price was the principal at Belmopan Comprehensive before coming down to Belize City and original St. Michael's, no?
Yes.
Beside the police station at Raccoon Street. So having a male principal does wonders for our school. So I want to ask Mr. Enriquez to chime in, because he, being an educator himself and having had the experience going to the villages with his father, can speak to this, no?
Well, there are, I would say also though, that there are female principals that could also take a school to excellence.
Right.
But what we're discussing is that there is an increasing marginalization of male leaders within the school system. So the statistics that you have says that only a few male principals.
Yes, there's 6 out of 51.
Out of 51 principals
in Belize District,
in
and
Belize
that's
District.
and that's at the primary school level. That's 11.17, I believe, and then at the high school is 6 out of 18. That's 33.3%.
Right.
So you have an increasing number of women leaders in a society where, as Abdul is pointing out,
and there we have
most of the students come from single parent, and that single parent must be the woman.
Right.
So they
currently
Yes.
currently the principals we have in Belize District that are males, We have at Bethel Primary School in Belize City, St. John Vianney. Bethel, we have Mr. Edward Logan. At St. John Vianney, we have Mr. Felix Sutherland. At Isabella Bank, you have, no, it's Isabella, no. Ladyville, all right, so the names, all right, John Stephen Schrock, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. Ladyville, Idelfonso Acosta, Our Lady of Lourdes RC School, that's in Moscow Village. You have Mr. German Ramirez, and then you have Mr. Louis L. Isigeri Jr. at Pilgrim Fellowship Mennonite, that's in Hattieville, and that's for the Belize district. And then you also have at the secondary school, quickly, you have Mr. Ismail Ricania, he's at Anglican Cathedral College in Belize City. You have Belize Rural High School, Mr. Juan Gongora, Canaan SDA High School, Seventh-day Adventist High School. Right here in Belize City, you have Mr. Garfield Mokolok. Mr. Roderick Cardenas is at Edward P. York High School. At King's College, that's on the Old Northern Highway, 31.5 miles, you have Mr. Pedro Perez. And last but not least, you have Mr. Emil Vasquez. He's at San Pedro High School. So those are for the primary first and then the secondary.
But what I also find very interesting is we have an all-boys school that is headed by women at almost all levels. The headmaster or headmistress, and then the next in line and the next in line. And so what we're pondering about is how does this impact the broader society? So you have boys coming out from homes, as Abdul mentioned, that is single parent and woman, and they go to school and they see the leadership as women. And so how does that affect the psyche of the boy,
especially
who is looking for role models, especially vulnerable? I used to argue that in cases like those, the schools need to actively bring in role model men. Our schools tend to isolate themselves from the community. That means they believe that only the teachers must be involved, and they hardly bring in others to even teach a lesson or so, or to talk to the boys. And I think if the school continues to isolate itself, it is not doing justice to the boys who are there. So one of the recommendations that I would have, especially in a case where you have an all-boys school, is to actively seek out and bring men consistently into the school for the boys to see. Men who are leaders in their professions, men, and don't wait just for
persons like you, persons like Abdul.
Don't wait just for like career week or all that. Every
exactly.
single week, as regularly as possible, bring them in. I've argued about that in different parent-teachers meeting when my sons were going to that school. But there still seemed to be a hesitance, because there's a lot of focus on the curriculum, but that does not necessarily prepare the boys for life. And so if I was to make a recommendation, I would strongly appeal to all schools, bring in role models into the school. The teachers cannot be it all. So actively seek and bring in men, bring them into the school.
I want to ask, because we are, this is a Garifuna Settlement Day special, I want to ask about in the Garifuna communities, what's the situation? Do you know, in terms of the same, what we're talking about in terms of male, female, a ratio, leadership roles in the schools, and what's the situation in terms of the different predominantly Garifuna-based communities as it regards to, possible the school dropouts and things?
Abdul,
in my experience, I also was able to work at the Belize Central Prison as the director of youth at one point. And I noticed nearing the end of my tenure there that a lot of young people from the south were coming in, and from the Keys. it's not much different. The picture is not much different. For example, Henry is a female-led school. Ecumenical, female-led. Georgetown, Mr. Casimiro. PG, St. Peter Claver, female-led. Dump has a Mr. Coy. And Toledo Tech has Mr. Simeon Koch.
Okay.
So, at least one of the things that I found, because this is our research that has been going on 19 years plus,
Yes.
speaking to people like Mr. Jamor Lopez, speaking to people like Mr. Crawford, and other male educators in the system. One of the things we've noticed is that the village schools still have more male presence.
Yes.
And because of that, they behave different. They act different. The discipline is still there. And unlike in the urban areas or in the city, we need more males. And because, you know,
And at least possibly in some of the more vulnerable
yes.
communities, the schools that are catering to the more vulnerable, because we know we would want, ideally we would want a balance.
Yes.
We definitely would want a balance. We don't want it to be skewed anyway. That's just how life should be. We should have balance. But what you mentioned also, try to bring in more male role models, good role models. Not everybody can play basketball. Not everybody can sing. But you need it. There's many other areas. And I must say that what I'm seeing to a great extent, I see the schools and certain people who work with youths. I see them, with the exception of you, Abdul, and I was I was one of the guests that you had brought in. But what I see are, you'll see, oh, this basketball player coming in, and this dancehall artist, or this reggae, or the Jamaican artist, or whatever. Those are the role models that are being brought in to a great extent.
Yeah.
We're not seeing, and I'm not hearing about persons like yourself, or you can tell me if I'm wrong, persons like yourself, you know, and Abdul. Those are people we need to see more of, and many other males who are doing wonderfully and doing positive things for our community that I believe are excellent role models.
There's a wellspring of information of people who can serve as resource persons in
Yes.
society. And
because
all
you
the-
had spoken about, sorry, I don't want to miss this.
Yeah.
There was an article I read that you had written in the Amandala newspaper. I have to bring this up.
okay.
And I just love that article. I mean, I love all of them. I read them. But there was one that you spoke about in terms of, you know, your parents. I mean, they had also grown, you know, different vegetables, and so right at home they had used, your mother had used those things also to take care of the family and things like that. So even things like that, I believe, ought to be taught. You understand?
Yeah, I remember writing that article about
Yes.
trying to encourage people to be self-sufficient. Any seed that you plant could grow.
Yes.
In your yard, a breadfruit tree could feed people rather than ramen noodles, coconut, lots of stuff you could plant, lemongrass. So a family could actually subsidize their own family meals just by what is growing in the yard.
And I can attest to that.
I remember speaking about that. But that is why it is important that you bring, when you talk about bringing in people to the school, sometimes they bring, it has to be a doctor or an attorney and all this fanciness. Bring in the farmer, bring in somebody who is a small entrepreneur, bring them in to the school. The school has to break out of its old dilapidating mold and try to reach to connect with the community and life itself, or the breakdown in our society.
Bringing these practitioners.
We have, so when the family fails, the school ought to be the next step that at least could save the individual.
Yes.
But we're so focused in old, I call it colonial, colonially fossilized education system. It disconnects people from self
Yes.
It disconnects people from others, it disconnects people from the community, from nature, and so you have this frustration that is constantly breeding and beneath. It is constantly, so when it erupts in domestic violence, it erupts in violence, in crime, we try to find band-aid solution, we march, we go to processions and pray to the Lord, but it is not going to stop if we do not find very in-depth interventions. And the interventions are the causes, the root causes is the disconnection that we're having.
Yes.
Even in the classroom, we're sitting straight, listening to one, sometimes very boring teacher all day, and we're just stuck there. And if we don't listen, we fail.
You have to
And
get out there as well.
We have to bring in community and school
Yes.
to transform our society.
This brings up another phenomenon that has reared its head.
Abdul, I want to hear that, but we have to go to our second ad break, and when we come back, we're going to go straight to you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
I just got tired of making someone else rich. It's time I do something for me. I was a bit nervous at first, but I went and I got all the equipment I needed at Universal Hardware. I know that even after sale, they will stay with me for the life of the equipment. I have a peace of mind with service and reliability, and more time with the family. Glad I did. Get the bragging rights you deserve. Visit Universal Hardware for sure.
Smart's Broadband Unlimited Internet is available in all 6 districts. Sign up and get your modem and installation free. Enjoy the fastest, most reliable broadband internet for your home or office. Now offering 1 megabyte for only $55. Sign up and get installation and equipment free.
The circle starts with solid support and a smile. This is real life. With its ups and its downs, this is going the extra mile. And the feeling you get when you can help someone along their journey. Through the twists and turns, we're here. This is Western Union, making sure your support reaches its destination. This is Western Union, moving money for better.
Welcome back to the Zenaida Moya Show. We have been speaking with Mr. Jeremy A. Enriquez and Mr. Abdul Marin Nunes. Now, before we went to break, Abdul, you were about to say something?
All right. So what I was about to say is that there's a new phenomenon that has reared its head in that even the young people, the boys don't want to access, since the school system doesn't work for them, they don't want to access alternative education because they're bored. We operate as if though one shoe fits all. Boys learn different than girls. So if you know the cater for them, for all the facets of their learning, then they want to take it board. Point in case, look at the IT vets around the country. With the exception, like I said before, of maybe the up north. And most of them are not being used. So they have to facilitate substituting other events at these venues. When the whole push at one point was technical vocational training.
Yes.
But these young people are into music and being hip hop and dance hall. They would like to know how to read music, make music, but that is not taught at IT vet.
And then they won't only teach about, is it the other areas they're not marketing it well to the
You see,
students?
all of that's supposed to be a part of the
They're
curriculum
not
to
showing how
market.
relevant, because
Yes.
one of the things that needs to be done as well is to look at the Belizean market and see where there are niche markets for these persons, and you say, hey, this is an area that you can get into, this is an area, and you can be extremely successful, you know. Success is being paid for doing something you love.
And then to get technical now, you want to look at the removal of corporal punishment from the schools. You took away the thing that the teachers used to hold control and to deal with the young people, and then you didn't replace it with anything that you consulted the teachers with, you came with your own thing that is not even culturally sensitive to the Belizean situation. Then they move corporal punishment, and then they introduce one contract system, which is a setup, because you know we are not straitjacket. We can't follow things to the letter.
Yes.
So you just set up the young person to fail. But even so, we have moved away from the routine system, and we now want to look at application, right? You know, people learn better, or we used to learn from, you know, routines and memorizing and stuff like that. No, they don't want that now. They want application of application.
Yes.
We used to have a REAP program in schools. They moved that, right? And they haven't replaced it with anything, right? And the discipline structure has, you know, dwindled, because you have students or young people coming from predatory environments now. And this is the reason why we've been recommending that the teachers get new training, because they are afraid of their students now, because some students come to some high school and hide gun in the ceiling because of the turf war in the city, right? So they have to travel with their tools to protect themselves, and the teachers know they don't want to deal with it, they're afraid.
Yeah.
And rightly so. But they have to learn how to deal with students who come from predatory environments, right? Because this is a new generation of students. So I would strongly recommend that, one, the night program is rolled out throughout the country, not just that one particular school to do it now.
When Lizaraga High School is the only school I'm aware right now.
There's-
Doing,
I think
know
there's two.
SJC extension used to do something as well.
I think there's still two,
two.
including Gwenliz.
Gwenliz.
This should be rolled out countrywide. Secondly, we have to consider one shift system.
Yes.
Because of the situation. Some people work that day and they could go to school at night. Some people work that night, and vice versa. So let's have or consider 8 to 12, 1 to 5, and 5 to 9 to accommodate everybody. And even on weekends, they do it in Cuba and other places where people can go to school at night and on weekends to be able to make up the time. So we have to get innovative and creative with our education, rather than looking at this thing from just something where you go land in the United States, this is not culturally sensitive, and you bring back the Belize thinking you fit here.
Yeah.
We have to tailor suit the thing
Well
and
said.
look at our situation. No?
That's just like how we have to really look at who are going in there to speak to our young persons to try and get them to become, more successful in life. Jeremy, what are some of the recommendations you would give to deal with this situation?
I've listed bringing in persons from the community into the classroom, and so to have a dynamic community and school relation. I would also, the other thing that I would like to strongly recommend is this new, apparently new, but it is a 2,500-year-old practice of mindfulness. I'm a strong advocate for mindfulness, just because it gives the individual, each student, a tool to be able to recognize deep within themselves and understand who they are. But
you do yoga as well.
Not this is separate.
This is yoga. This is
separate from yoga.
Separate.
It is observing, learning to observe self. In a way that will self-regulate any negative states of emotion when they arise. So once a person is strengthened in mindfulness, they could recognize the arising of negative states, which is what is happening. So when we have these collective negative states, is what we're seeing in our city. We have not really looked at ways to address it.
People are just angry.
Scientifically,
angry.
Scientifically proven, and in the neuroscience and psychology will show the transformative effect of mindfulness. Schools that do it report very, very minimal to no disciplinary problem, because the child himself learns to regulate and to be disciplined.
What you're mentioning is very important, because as a lot of single mothers, and we had spoken about that, you see a lot of them are so angry. They're angry because they're getting no help from the father. A lot of them are unemployed. They're angry. They have to take care of children that they have no money to deal with. So they're angry, and so the kids
Right.
come out and
Exactly, it is passed on.
Yeah, it's passed on
the
to
state of the
them.
mother and
Correct.
pass on to the
So,
kids.
yeah.
And so, if that is not resolved and we don't teach people to deal with those things by themselves and
Yes.
to prevent all the negative states that arise, I could guarantee that we're not going anywhere. We're just putting band-aid on top of band-aid. And anytime we say we're going to fight violence,
yes,
just looking at fighting violence without thinking about really what are you fighting for. I see that
Yeah.
because every year you have like 16 days of activism against violence. So the focus is violence. Rather than what do you want. So the key to change is to focus your energy on what you want rather
Yes.
than what you don't want.
yes.
And
I like
so,
that. I like that.
yeah.
But I wanted to make two more recommendations.
Yes.
There is a population 19 and above, that there is nothing in the city going on for this population.
Okay.
And this is a highly at-risk population. Even the children during the day go hang out with this population at night. Why not bring back life skills through sports for these individuals at this time?
Yes.
So they could learn to read and learn to write and life skills, the written part, and engage in sports and learn sportsmanship and all these other good things.
Yes.
Now further to that now, summertime is critical. We need to start using our summers to get these young people engaged. Peer-to-peer teaching, peer-to-peer counseling, right? It's going to be helpful.
Yes.
Then again, we have a lot of our young people who not only need mentoring, but I'm recommending that we have martial arts taught in school. Right now in Belize, we have a 4th degree Dan who is teaching judo. You know, we have to get our young people into the arts. They are dying inside trying to find outlets to express themselves and nothing no there. So we have to look at these things. We could get creative and innovative with this thing so that we could reach all in people. We have multiple ways of learning. They're not just chalk and talk. Now, I want to say this because this is important. I read something online a couple of hours ago where the Minister of Education and his staff met with BTL to try to get technology in the classroom. But that is all fine and good. Kudos to them. I salute them for this. But we have to drop, right now we're at a situation in Belize where we have to drop everything like this guy, Mr. Stamp, is doing on the Timmy Stamp is doing.
Yes.
He is instituting a program called Drop Everything and Read.
Yes.
A lot of our males are frustrating themselves because they cannot read.
Yes.
Once you miss that by infant 2, it's very difficult for you to get it back again.
And
Reading is critical in this country.
And I love reading. That's one of my hobby. I'm happy if I get some time to read. That's when I get happy, when I'm reading. This is a book. This is a book. Where can people get it?
To Educate a Nation, autobiography of Andres P. and James D. Enriquez
Yes.
is available at the Angelus Press here in Belize City, Brody's, the Image Factory, A&R,
Yes.
and also in Belmopan at Dicker Stationery and Books. It will be available at Flo Johnson's store in Punta Gorda and at Mr. Oscar Ramirez store in Dangriga.
Amazon.com.
And Keyboard in Keycocker, Amazon.com.
All right. So there's no reason not to get the book. How much is it?
At the launch it's $35, so at other places it might be $36 or $37 depending on
And I
where
think
it
at
is.
Amazon.com it's like
It's
$19.95. 98 US dollars.
Amazon, yes.
So excellent book for you to get. I mean, I know you have heard about him, and for some of you who may not have seen him, you're seeing him in person. So delve into what he has written and where he has come from. You understand? And learn about the contributions of the Garinago in Belize. All right, that's important. Belize needs to know its history, and we are a multi-ethnic country, and we must appreciate all our ethnicities and appreciate what they have done for our country. I want to say thank you to both of you.
Thanks very much.
I have learned a lot. Abdul has been on the show, and I always learn so much from Abdul. Abdul is probably a little bit older than me, a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. But he's like an elder.
Oh,
The
wow.
man knows a lot. That's why I know the poem that he's gonna write. I will be tuning in to like that on a free poet. Jeremy, I have learned so much from you. I have read your articles. I enjoy, you know, when you do write, I'm one of those that are, and I save your articles as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I
Well,
actually
now
save
that I'm finished with the book, I will start again. So thanks.
Yes, we
Look out
miss
for
you.
more.
And I want to thank the sponsors for this show: Geo Motors, Universal Hardware, Smart Belize, and Moya Shepherd and Company Limited. I want to thank the technical crew, Mr. Cliff Lewis Sr. and Miss Christy Flowers. The viewers, thank you all for always tuning in to the Zenaida Moya show, whether on the Facebook live streaming or whether live on television. I always say that I dedicate the show to my son, Kelvin, and to my daughter, Natalia. Why? Because they are part of the future generation. And whatever we do, we must do in mind that we want to build a better nation. We want a better future for them. I want you to join us next week because I'm going to speak a little, thank first of all you, but I want to say we will be having Mr. Bern Velasquez. He is one of the well-known musicians and a movie actor. So we will be having him on the show next week. He is a dynamic guy. I believe everybody loves Bern Velasquez. He will tell you he's the #1 selling musician artist in Belize. And of course, he has taught a lot of people how to make sure they sell their music. Cross the Nitro, his real name is Shaikel Nunes, will also be here, and he's one of them who's following in Bern Velasquez's footsteps. So tune in next week, Wednesday. You'll be hearing from these two gentlemen, and may all of us celebrate a wonderful, a safe Garifuna Settlement Day. God bless you, and you know, just enjoy. Thank you.